everybody. It is my joy to welcome all of you here to Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor's online Sunday service. My name is Mariette Jones, and I am here to guide us through this wonderful service. So our speaker for today is Reverend David Old, and he is the minister of our center here in Windsor, Ontario. And the title of his talk is The Joy of Not Thinking. That sounds good, like good stuff.
It's so good to have him back from Texas. He's been gone for a few weeks. We've missed him. So the opening prayer that I chose for today is the Absolute Word by Reverend Paul Hasselbeck. The affirmation is this, and this is actually the absolute word that he wrote from today's daily word. So I joyously bless the people who have touched my life. I joyously bless the people who have touched my life. Grandparents, parents, siblings, members of my extended family, teachers, friends, co-workers, every person I've known has, by his or her example, helped me feel more deeply what it means to be human. Some have engaged my curiosity. Some have taught me life skills. Some have modeled positive attitudes and behaviors. Some have loved me fully and unselfishly, and some have helped me learn to love even when loving felt difficult. So today I remember those people whose lives have touched mine. I pause and think kindly of each one as I savor memories of time we shared together, whether we're even now in each other's lives or not, have lost touch, or death has come between us because we can no longer be in touch with them physically. I know our shared experiences continue to enrich our lives and deeply bless us on our spiritual journeys. I joyously bless the people who have touched my life. We have a song for you now by Eddie Watkins Jr. It's called I Walk Away.
Every morning, the light keeps getting brighter as I wake up to the truth. And every day, I'm feeling so much lighter, and the world seems fresh and new. Well, I was taught, and the way that I thought stopped serving me long ago. Now I'm learning to trust in the God of all of us. It's just a day I'm letting go. I'm walking away from the thinking that held me for so long. Today is the day I walk away. I'm walking away from the path that led me to such sadness. Today is the day I walk away. I'm walking away from the thinking that held me for so long. Today is the day I walk away. I'm walking away from the path that led me to confusion. Today is the day I walk away. Every day I walk away. Every morning brings a new beginning, by grace another day to be. And I awaken to the sun upon me shining, lighting the way for me to see. Oh, things that I sought and the way that I thought stopped serving me long ago. Now I'm learning to trust in the God of all of us. Each day I start anew, and so I'm walking away from the thinking that held me for so long. Today is the day I walk away. I'm walking away from the path that led me to confusion. Today is the day I walk away. Oh, I'm walking away from the less than that held me for so long. Today is the day I walk away. I'm walking away from the path that led me to such sadness. Today is the day I walk away. Every day I walk away. Today is the day I walk away.
I appreciated this inspirational song very much. Yes, we do need to walk away from old thinking and create new thoughts, which will create a new reality, the one that we want. Thank you, Eddie. We appreciate you. And now let us turn our attention to Reverend David, who will invite us to ponder upon the joy of not thinking.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our online service here at Unity Spiritual Center in Windsor, Ontario. I'm Reverend David Old, and I am the senior minister here, and so glad to be back. Let's just take a moment right now, and for all of those of you who are watching, to just take a deep breath with me. And as we take that deep breath, we bring our attention to this place, this time, and we feel the presence of Spirit. And so I invite you to do that, just to center yourselves, to feel that presence of Spirit that we live and move and have our being in. And in that feeling of connection with Spirit, our oneness with Spirit and our oneness with each other, we go ahead and we begin this service. So I arrived back in Michigan just this past Monday after spending 16 days in Texas, assisting my 89-year-old father in getting his affairs in order, and also helping him to get settled into his new residence, which is at a assisted living place in Coppers Cove, Texas, where he lives. It's Stony Brook. It's a very nice living facility, assisted living facility. And I've been trying to get my father and my mother to move to that assisted living for the past 7 years. And I just could not get them to move. They refused to move out of their home that they have lived in for the past 46 years. Well, last December, my mother passed away right before Christmas and right before what would have been my mother's and father's 71st wedding anniversary. They've been married for 71 years. at that time, when my mother passed away, my father decided to make me his power of attorney. I'd already been made the executor of his will, but he gave me power of attorney in case he ever reached that point where he couldn't make sane decisions anymore. And so when I arrived in Texas, uh, he had just recently had a medical episode, and he was just not in good mental state at all. And in fact, when they got him to the hospital, he was anemic. He needed blood. His electrolytes were all over the place. He had been living in the house by himself, and he just hadn't been taking care of himself. He hadn't been eating or drinking correctly. So it was just something that caught up with him, and he ended up in the hospital. Actually, he was so incoherent and everything that they thought he might have had a stroke. But after further investigation and an MRI, they decided it wasn't a stroke, but his dementia, the early stages of dementia had set in even more aggressively, and so I found myself with my father uh, not being able to remember any of his banking passwords, none of his passwords for uh, his credit cards. So essentially, I found pretty much all of his affairs sort of in a mess, and it was certainly a very interesting 16 days that I spent there. For those of you who have read my newsletter, I'm repeating some of this story, but for those of you who are not on our mailing list, just sort of gives you an idea of what's been happening. So my father, after retiring with 35 years in the Army, and he retired in 1976, and he built a machine shop for my brother. And so my father has been going into work for the past 44 years. He's been going into work and meeting my brother there, and they've been running this machine shop. He went into work 5 days a week. But again, this past September, he didn't show up, and so that's when they found him incoherent, and they had to call the hospital. And then he ended up in a nursing home and rehab facility, which is where I went to pick him up, and I brought him. I brought him home, where I stayed with him, and where I tried to get him to eat properly, and all of that is I made arrangements to get him into the assisted living. So Dad is now safely checked into his apartment in Stony Brook, and I'm still working to get his accounts and everything in order. I had managed pretty soon after I got there to get his passwords changed on his banking account and everything, and I was able to get into them. I was able to get into his email account and take care of those things. And then while my sister-in-law Brenda and I were getting his apartment all set up, we had to furnish it and get it all set up for him to move into. I dropped my father off at my brother Kenneth's at the shop where they worked, and had him watch after my father while Brenda and I set up his apartment right before we moved him in. And so in that, I guess about 2 hours that he was at the shop, he managed to get back into the checking account, or tried to get back into the checking account, and he made so many unsuccessful tries of getting into his banking accounts that they froze the account again. And so I ended up, the day before I left, finding myself at square one where I had started. And so I'm still, working on that. So life definitely has its ups and downs, and I know all of us have felt that before. And so when I was in Texas for those 16 days, I had some wonderful times. And I bonded deeply, even more deeply with my father, and I bonded more deeply with my sister-in-law and my brother. Uh, uh, but at the same time, like I said, there was some very challenging times. There were a lot of ups and downs, and there's still so much to do. And then when I got home this past Wednesday, I got home Monday, and then Wednesday I got a call from my sister-in-law and found out that my brother tested positive with COVID. And so that sort of threw all sorts of things up in the air and things to think about and all of that. And so my sister-in-law and I both Wednesday went to get fast COVID tests. And we did, and we both were negative. So we're very grateful for that. But what I'm just trying to relay is just how life, as we all know it, can be so up and down. I just had some really highs and some really lows. So there was, again, like I say, lots of stressful situations during my trip. But what I found is that I found myself operating for the great majority of time in a very centered and peaceful way. Knowing with all my heart that Spirit is in charge and that all things do indeed work together for the good. You know, before flying to Texas, I knew what my top title for this Sunday was going to be. It was the joy of not thinking. I mean, little did I know that the number of times that I'd be working on this discipline when I was in Texas with my father. And so I was reminded very quickly at the very beginning of my trip that we always have the choice of how we approach and respond to any challenge that we face. And by thinking and naming something as a problem, it becomes a problem. And on the other hand, by thinking and naming a challenge as an opportunity for growth instead of a problem, it becomes a wonderful opportunity to grow emotionally and spiritually, and to see more clearly and realize more clearly the truth of who we are. We are not individual egos. We are spiritual beings, wise, peaceful, joyous, and powerful spiritual beings who are having a human experience. And we are creative. We are creating our lives one thought at a time, one choice at a time. You know, our third unity principle, it states that we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. And unfortunately, too much of our thinking is negative and not helpful at all. Our thinking is creating our experiences. And if we are not mindful of the kinds of thoughts that we hold in our mind, we can create all kinds of unpleasant and unhelpful conditions in our lives. And while there's obviously nothing wrong with thinking, I mean, we have to think, after all, in order to live, but we're usually way too serious in how we think, and we tend to overthink. So today we're going to explore being more thoughtful in our thinking processes and how we can do that. Actually, not thinking can be a very powerful tool to help us be more peaceful and more productive. So life can really be much easier when we put the joy of not thinking into practice, which we'll talk a little bit about. So like I said, I knew the subject for some time, for about a month, of what I was going to be talking about, but I didn't have the title, and I got it right before I took off for Texas. And I found it in a Kindle Unlimited book that I found, and it's called The Joy of Not Thinking, A Radical Approach to Happiness, and it's by Tim Grimes. So Tim Grimes is a coach, a speaker, and a writer and editor of a multiple best-selling self-help books, and he's been called the guru of taking it easy. So some of the books that he has written is Manifestation Through Relaxation, and another one is Relax More, Try Less. And then again, The Joy of Not Thinking is another, but he's had several other books also. And so when I saw it on Kindle, Unlimited, available to download, I downloaded it and actually read the whole thing. It's a very short little book. It's only 56 pages and a very easy read. And I do recommend that you, if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. And but anyway, it was a really a cute little book, and I really enjoyed reading it. And so when I saw The Joy of Not Thinking, I said, that's a perfect title for my talk. So there it is. So one of the things that Tim says is that he said, being less serious can be one of the easiest ways to reduce stress. And there's nothing wrong with being serious if you want to be. But what Tim really focuses on in this little book is overthinking and being too serious. So it can seem very subtle, but when we feel worried or depressed, overthinking is very likely the culprit. And the truth is, most of us just need to become more relaxed because we're really not very good at being able to easily relax. Many of us aren't anyway. And so we don't have to battle through things or constantly strive to improve ourselves. That is one of his messages, and that's the absolute truth. The truth is, again, most of us just need to become more relaxed because we, again, are not good at it. In short, we usually don't have to do anything. We just think we do. So thinking less and becoming more relaxed is surprisingly enough to positively change things for us. Simply put, if you don't overthink, you'll feel better, and better things will happen to you. So one of the chapters in his books is how to stop thinking through movement and noise. And what he talks about, if you find yourself just too serious and really just being stressed and everything with life, some of the easiest ways to get out of that is to do and say and act unexpectedly. And I really enjoyed some of the examples that he gave. And when you're doing really silly things and making silly noises, you can't help but laugh. You can't help but laugh at yourself. And that laughing, it's been said that laughing is the very best medicine, and in many ways it absolutely is. I find myself in the car sometimes when I have a lot on my mind, just making funny noises and singing funny songs that I make up. And, I just can't be worried or feel stressed when I'm doing something really silly. And it's in the privacy of my own car. And so he gives us examples of, he said, just, if you really are feeling stressed and just do something that is something totally out of your comfort zone that you would never do in front of people. Is sort of like, take your clothes off and start patting your tummy as a bongo, or just lay on the floor and pretend to be a little kid just rolling over and over and giggling, or start just walking around like a monkey and, up like this and doing that. And instead of maybe making monkey sounds, make a barking sounds like a dog. Anyway, it's just think of something that's just absolutely ridiculous and do it, and you can't stay serious when you're doing something like that. So that was one whole chapter on that, and which I found delightful. So another thing is to how to stop thinking, and that is through indifference and stillness. So sometimes the most important thing that you can do to improve certain problematic aspects of your life is not to think about them. You know, in Unity, we have this, there's this little tract called the Golden Key, which has been in publication. You can get it at Unity. It's been in publication for years and years. And essentially, I can't remember who wrote the tract, but essentially, the gist of the tract is that if you find yourself in a real problem, either in health or financial or relationship, a problem, whatever, the golden key is to take your mind off of the problem. Take your mind off of the problem and put it into God's hands. So in other words, don't think about your problem. Turn it over to Spirit. Spirit is always the answer. Spirit has the answer. Spirit is has all of the wisdom in the world and knows exactly what is necessary. So we just turn it over to Spirit. And we know in Unity that the more we focus on a problem, the more that problem becomes blown up in our mind. So that's one of the ways. Is just it's not necessary to just dwell on your problems all the time. Turn it over to Spirit. Relax. So H. Emily Cady is the author of Lessons in Truth, and which was the very first book that Unity published. And she eloquently wrote, "Be in a state mentally of trustful passivity and see God's saving power." She's talking about the same thing. Just allow yourself to be in that state mentally of just being totally trusting and being passive regarding whatever the problem is. Again, turn the situation over into Spirit's hands. Fillmore, by the way, said the greatest need of humankind is mind control. The greatest need of humankind is mind control. We just let our minds get away from us. So again, I was reminded quickly at the beginning of my trip that we always have, the choice of how we approach and respond to any challenge in life that we may face. So by thinking and naming something as a problem, again, it becomes a problem. But thinking and naming a challenging situation as just that, an opportunity for growth, it becomes just that, an opportunity of growth for us. So our third Unity principle, as I have stated, is we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. So we need to watch our thoughts. We need to keep track of what we're holding in our mind, and we need to be awake and aware of the thoughts that we are holding. So before I came up with the title and everything, I had been thinking of this talk for some time and had been looking at the different spiritual teachers that we had been exploring over the past, actually the past 2 years, and how they all have encouraged us to watch our way of thinking, watch the thoughts that we hold in mind. The great Indian saint or spiritual teacher Ramana Maharshi He said the degree of freedom from unwanted thoughts and the degree of concentration on a single thought are the measures to gauge spiritual progress. That's a very powerful statement there. The degree of freedom from unwanted thoughts and the degree of concentration on a single thought are the measures to gauge spiritual progress. That's Ramana Maharshi. And then Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, he says the mind covers up reality without knowing it. To know the nature of the mind, you need intelligence, the capacity to look at the mind in silent and dispassionate awareness. Look at your mind dispassionately, and this is enough to calm it. When it is quiet, you can go beyond it. Do not keep it busy all the time. Stop it and just be. Just be. If you give it a rest, it will settle down and recover its purity and strength. He goes on to say that constant thinking makes it decay. So Adyashanti, we did a whole series of talks on Adyashanti's book, Falling into Grace. And he says thought is an amazing creative force and a double-edged sword. If you're not careful, it starts to use you rather than you using it. So thoughts are just moving through our consciousness. And the truth of the matter is, as they move through our consciousness, they have no power. They have no power until we actually grab hold of them and start looking at them and start examining them. And so again, no thought has reality until we grab a hold of it, until somehow we impregnate it with the power of belief. And this is something that we need to be always mindful of. So Adya says that as soon as you believe that a label that you've placed on yourself is true, you've limited something that is literally limitless. You've limited who you are into nothing but a thought. Many sages that I've read throughout my time of study in spirituality, so many of them say that you're living in an illusion. They're referring to the world of the mind and the way we believe our thoughts about reality. When we see the world through our thoughts, we stop experiencing life as it really is, and we stop seeing others as they really are, as we look at life through the veil of our thoughts. Adyashanti says, stop being who you think you are and be who you are. A spiritual being, a powerful spiritual being, a wise spiritual being, a loving spiritual being. Your natural your natural reality is one of peace and power and love. You are not your egos. So when you shift your thinking to direct experience, it truly makes all the difference in the world. And if we shift our experience to this direct experience that you are living in at this moment, that you are facing this moment and you're being fully present to it, you are empowered, and it does make all the difference in the world. So peace can be found in this moment right now. And it's nothing that we need to try to attain. It's our natural state of being, peace. Within each and every one of us, at the very heart of our being, is there is this pure consciousness, that there's this silence, that there is this power within each and every one of us, and it is at peace. So we don't need to seek peace. We just need to make ourselves open and receptive to that peace that lies within each and every one of us. It's what we allow ourselves to be. It's what we fall into when our overthinking mind is absent. Another one of our teachers that we studied a little while, actually it was last year, the later part of last year, was Byron Katie, who and we looked at her book, Loving What Is. Byron Katie says, as long as you think that the cause of your problem is out there, as long as you think that anyone or anything is responsible for your suffering, the situation is hopeless. It means that you are forever in the role of victim. It means that you're suffering, she says, in paradise. She said, I discovered that when I believed my thoughts, I suffered. But when I didn't believe them, I didn't suffer. And that this is true for every human being. Freedom is as simple as that. I found that suffering is optional. I found a joy within me that has never disappeared, not for a single moment. And she went on to say, the only time we suffer is when we believe a thought that argues with what is. When the mind is perfectly clear, what is what we want. And Ajahn Shanti has said the same thing. That we suffer when, and Tolle has said the same thing. We suffer when we argue with what is. Eckhart Tolle says the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but our thoughts about it. You know, whenever we feel a stressful feeling, anything from mild discomfort to intense sorrow or rage or despair, we can be certain that there is a specific thought causing our reaction, whether or not we're conscious of it or not. So the way to end our stress is we just need to investigate the thinking behind what lies behind the stress. And that's called inquiry, just looking at what thoughts are causing us to suffer in this particular situation. Eckhart Tolle tells us that our mind is an instrument. Our mind is a tool. It's there for a specific task, and when the task is completed, we can just set it down. But he goes on to say that as the way he sees it, 80 to 90% of most people's thinking is not only repetitive and useless, but because of its dysfunctional and often negative nature, much of it is also very harmful to them. So he invites us, encourages us to observe our mind. And he said, you'll see that to be true. It caused this dysfunctional thinking that we just constantly are doing unnecessarily. He calls it a serious leakage of vital energy. He also says that the next step in human evolution is to transcend thought. And this is how, and he says this is really now our urgent task. It doesn't mean not to think anymore, but simply not to be completely identified with thought, not to be possessed by thought. Actually, strictly speaking, you don't think. Thinking happens to you. I mean, if you really observe your mind, the thoughts just bubble up, and they're there. I mean, we are being programmed by all the news that we watch on television, the news we listen to on the radio. We're being programmed by our, when we were younger, we were programmed by our parents and by our churches and by our schools. We were fed all of this information, and it comes to us. So it's thinking just happens to you. And we just need to be aware of that. And again, those thoughts have no power unless we grab hold of them and we make them part of us and we give focus to them. So the way thinking is it actually thinking just, it cuts up everything into conceptual bits and pieces. And so thinking is, it separates, it divides, it judges. And we just need to realize that, and that is not the truth of who we are. We are this whole magnificent spiritual being connected to all of life, connected to spirit, connected to each and every one of the people that we meet. And so thinking is just, it's all the thinking that we do truly is not necessary. We overthink. And as we overthink, we bring separation into our lives and the way we think and how the way we act. So thinking is a wonderful tool if it's applied. Thinking, however, cannot become the master of us. And thinking is a very bad master. If you're dominated by thinking, then your life becomes very restricted. If the thought of lack, whether it be money or recognition or love, has become part of who you think you are, you're always going to be experiencing lack. And rather than acknowledge the good that's already there in your life, if you just keep lack in your mind, that's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to attract in your life. So the stream of thinking has enormous momentum that can easily drag you along with it. And every thought pretends that it matters so much. Okay. One of the things that I've spoken of on several occasions is the Sense and Ming, which is Verses of the Faith Mind by Sang San, and it's an ancient Buddhist scripture, and it speaks of the Tao, or the absolute principle underlying everything. It's also called the perfect way, the great way. So in this particular verse, Verses of the Faith Mind, it says the great way is not difficult. And again, consider the great way as you can think of it as nirvana, you can think of it as heaven, you can think of it as the truth of what is. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. So what is a preference? A preference is thinking. So again, watch your thoughts. We don't need to be thinking as much as we do. So the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. Again, this scripture is talking preferences, it's thinking. Love and hate, they're thoughts. Again, thinking. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. Again, opinions. These are thoughts. Hold no thoughts, hold no opinions against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of things is not understood, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. The way is perfect, like vast space, where nothing is lacking and nothing is in excess. Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things. A lot of wisdom there for us to think about, for us to take it to heart, for us to take into prayer and to take into meditation. You know, one little simple practice, and I've mentioned this over and over, is to be mindful of whatever you are doing. Bring your attention completely and totally to your present moment in whatever activity it is that you're doing. And when you're focused on the present moment, it really does still all of those monkey mind thoughts that can be jumping around in your head. Eckhart Tolle says, when you wash your hands, when you make a cup of coffee, when you're waiting for the elevator, instead of indulging in thinking, these are all opportunities for being there as a still, alert presence. And that, my friend, is a practice. Being fully present, being fully alert, being fully awake. And to do that, we have got to have control over our thoughts and be mindful of those thoughts. So my friend, bless you, and let's go ahead and listen before we go into our meditation. Let's go ahead and listen to a beautiful song by Faith Rivera, and it's entitled The Power of Now.
Power of now is always present, nowhere to be than where you are. The power of now flows oh so gracefully. The power of now perfect, nothing to be than who you are. The power of now flows oh so easily. Be willing to let go of everything you think you need to know. Oh, be strong enough to let go of everything you think you need to control. For everything goes away. Let everything wash power of now. The power of now is ever flowing, connecting the soul to the one. The power of now so peacefully. Be willing to let go of everything you think you need to know. Oh, be strong enough to let go of everything you think you need to control. For everything goes away. Let everything wash away. The power of now. The power of now. The power of now. The power of now.
So I invite you to join me in a time of meditation. That was such a lovely song by Faith Rivera. I loved it so much. And let's just take a moment to relax in our chairs where we sit, bring our attention to this place, to this time. Take a few deep breaths if you need to. That helps, that always helps to bring you to this present moment. When we concentrate on our breath, we really stop our mind, because we really, when we're concentrating on something, it's like our breath, then we have no room in our mind for thoughts. So it's a great way to center ourselves and bring your attention to this present moment as we just give concentration to the breath that we are breathing at every moment. So we allow ourselves to feel this present moment, this eternal now, as we align with this now moment. As we align ourselves with this now moment, there is nothing but peace. In this present moment, there are no problems. In this present moment, there is that peace beyond understanding that Jesus promised us. In this present moment, there is truly all the wisdom that we could ever need in this present moment. So let's rest in this present moment. Let's rest in this silence. Let's open our hearts and open our minds to receive the wisdom that is always there for us, because we are one with our source, because we are one with our source's wisdom. We are one with the love of source. We are one with the healing presence of our source, the healing light. So we open ourselves to all of those things, all of these rich blessings that Jesus said was the Father's good will, good pleasure to give us. So we open ourselves to those blessings, and we let ourselves just spend a little time in the silence. Loving Holy Spirit, we are so grateful for this time together. Help us to be mindful of the thoughts that we hold in our minds. Help us to be fully and totally open and receptive to that wisdom that is within each and every one of us. Help us to be completely and totally open to that peace that lies in the silence within each and every one of us. That peace that lies in that stillness within us. Again, Holy Spirit, help us to be the light of the world that we are meant to be the peace in the world that we wish to see, to be the love in the world that we wish to experience. Help us to be that vessel through which we make your kingdom made manifest upon this earth. In gratitude, we say, thank you, loving Spirit, and we pray this in the name of the living Christ presence, the truth of who we are. And so it is. Amen. Namaste, everyone. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Reverend David, there were so many wonderful gems in your talk that I enjoyed very much. The one that resonated with me especially strongly is the idea of laughter and using it to relax and just stop taking myself so seriously. So, okay, I can roll around on the floor like a little girl and giggle. I can act like a monkey, whatever it takes to get myself into a lighter place with spirit and just chill out and just be light in every way. Thank you. So, Reverend David will be speaking to those of us who want to delve into this topic more deeply. After this service, we have a Zoom session called Conversations with the Minister. Reverend David will be there, and we will be able to share our insights, our ideas, and ask our questions, and just talk together about what he talked about to us. So you can go there so easily. It's just go to our website, unityofwindsor.org, and click on Zoom classes and meetings, and just scroll down and you will find the appropriate link to join us. Conversations with the Minister. I also want to extend our appreciation to Faith Rivera. What a beautiful, powerful message. With the ocean behind her, it really helped me zone into her message in a powerful way. Thank you, Faith. And thank you for the beautiful musical video you shared so generously with all of us. Thank you. So now it is time to thank everybody who continues to support this ministry with their financial donations. This is a very challenging time, as we all know, and we could not continue to provide our programs and services without your steady support. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. There are various ways to donate, and it's easy to do. We accept e-transfer or PayPal. Send your donations to unitycenterwindsor@gmail.com. Or you can click the blue donate button at the top of our website, which will take you to a safe and secure site called Canada Helps, where you can make a one-time or recurring donation using a credit or debit card. Another option is just to send a check or money order to our office. It's steady but true. So for further information, visit our website at unityofwindsor.org. Thank you. Bless you for your loving and generous support. Also, during these interesting times, Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor is exploring different ways to provide more online services, classes, and opportunities to meet virtually. Information about all these upcoming classes and events can be found on our website at unityofwindsor.org. You're going to get that website memorized by all my repetitive mentionings of it. At this time, I'd also like to put a plug in for a brand new class that I created called Being in the Presence, and it's actually based on a talk that Reverend David did about a month ago called Living Without Limits. And in that talk, he talks about practicing disciplines that remind us of our oneness. So yes, I've created a class based on that talk and expanded the concept a little bit, but it's a 5-week class, and you will find out about that in our newsletter and also on the website and also on our Facebook page. So onward and forward. Now, if you do not receive our weekly newsletter, please contact us and we will very quickly add you to our email list so you can get in on all the good stuff. To close our service now, we want to say a short prayer of gratitude and our prayer for protection. So there is something that we do together every week. It's called our vision, mission, and statement of being, which are found on your screen at this time. And this reminds us of the power of our affirmation of asserting together what our purpose is as a community and as individuals. So Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor's vision, which we created together, goes as follows. A world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. Our mission is we inspire and empower spiritual growth to awaken us and transform the world. Our individual statement of being is this. I am a dynamic center of the Christ light, mighty to unfold my good and radiate that good to all. Now it is time for a love offering prayer. Divine love in me and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. We have a beautiful short prayer called the Prayer for Protection. Let's say it together. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Again, much gratitude to Reverend David and our musicians, Mike Karloff, Faith Rivera, and Eddie Watkins Jr. Before I let you all go, I want to make a special announcement that next Sunday we will have Reverend Matthew Long speaking to us with a talk entitled Living in Heaven. For your information, Reverend Matthew Long is Reverend Kathy Harwood Long's husband. So he's actually spoken at Unity of Windsor before, and we gladly welcome him back and look forward to his talk, Living in Heaven. I just want to wish everybody a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.